one way or another or interacted with humans, and they cannot go back in the wild because they have been impacted by humans, and they need to be in our care until they're raised well enough to be able to go back in the wild. In the state of Pennsylvania, I have about 6 different permits to include an education permit, a federal permit, and 4 state permits in order for me to handle, care, keep in my custody, and transport wildlife off the property or to put them back in the wild. We also have our rabies permit, but right now we don't have the rabies enclosures because they have very strict standards for building rabies enclosures. But I won't even tell you what the rabies species are in PA, because if you have a problem with a rabies animal, please give us a call. But the first thing you must always remember, and I'm going to tell you this right now, I cannot help a rabies species animal if you've touched it with your bare hands. And that goes for any animal. See the gloves I got on? They're about $10 or $12. Everybody in here should buy a pair of them. If you happen to have an injured animal and you're not sure exactly what species it is or anything, your best protection, like Alex said, to keep you from being hurt, if you want to help an animal, just go out and buy a cheap pair of these. If you can prove, even somebody with a camera phone, if you find a baby skunk and the mother's been killed, skunks are a rabies species. But I did bring a skunk, and my daughter's going to take the skunk out and hold it, and I always recommend. This skunk has been descented, and it has its rabies shots. That means that it is just like a house cat. What happened is somebody had this skunk as a pet, and they could not prove, because we have a dilemma here in Pennsylvania, you are legally allowed to purchase a skunk as a pet. You can go out and buy one right now. But you better have a receipt for it, and I'll get back to the receipt, and that'll tie in why we have this skunk under our education right now. You better have a receipt for it, you take it to the vet, you get it descented, and you get it rabies shots just like a house cat. That's the 3 legal ways that you're allowed to actually own a skunk. The skunk that these people had, since skunks are native to Pennsylvania wildlife, without a permit, it is illegal to keep any animal that lives in Pennsylvania without a permit. The people who had the skunk could not prove that they legally purchased it. They even took it to the vet, they got it descented, they got it as rabies shots, but they could not prove that they didn't take it from the wild. So that means the Game Commission had to confiscate it from them, and is now, are you having a problem?
Yeah,
open the top lid, she'll come right out the top lid much easier. Here, what's that one doing? She's been in a cage, an enclosure. We just built her a brand new enclosure, and she's been the queen in that enclosure with nobody there. So now when you take her out to programs, it's like, I don't want to share. She's perfectly fine. Oh, let's get over here. Let me have this thing right. Perfect. I got it. Yep. There we go. Hi. There. And she is a pet. She's just like a house cat. In New York, tons of people own these. They have less restrictions than we have. If people worry that she's going to spray me or whatever, she's completely desat, and she'll be fine now that I got a hold of her. And unfortunately, like I said, those people could not prove that they bought her legally because they did not have a receipt for her. So the Game Commission has to do what they have to do. They confiscated her. They brought her to our place, and while the investigation was ongoing, since she is native wildlife, we were allowed to have her at our place. And so we had her. And after the investigation was over, they said, well, it's either we have to euthanize her, or would you like to keep her and put her on your education permit? We said, we want to keep her and put her on our education permit. I take her to school. She's very friendly. I'm not allowed to let anybody touch her because she is also considered what in Pennsylvania? A rabies species, right. So I cannot let the public interact with her. I actually wear these gloves because I want to promote, even though she is more like a house cat, she's still native wildlife. And in Pennsylvania, any animal that lives in the wild can and will bite you if it feels it needs to defend itself. And it's not doing it because it's mean or nasty, it's doing it because it just wants to get away from you. And that's why, and skunks, their only natural defense is to spray you. But she has been descented. The only known predator to skunk in Pennsylvania are great horned owls and automobiles. Running across the road, which, it happens, but, and I think that's what happened was killed, and there was probably a baby skunk with her, and they probably just decided to keep it as a pet. So she'll have to live her life with us, but she has a big cage, and she's perfectly, like I said, she's friendly. She's not going to try to bite you or anything. She was been raised since a kitten, and that's what they call baby skunks too. They also call them kittens. So she's okay with it. She's just, can you open that lid? The reason why we close the lid. Can you open the lid, Jane?
Oh. Yeah.
Why did you close it? There's nothing in there.
There's an imaginary.
Everybody always goes, oh my God, it's going to spray me, and that's why I have to go into talking about her. I did bring some other animals, and all the animals that I brought here, our goal at Sky Spirit Wildlife, our number one goal is to release animals back into the wild. Let's hope he doesn't get goofy. I got him. Now, I've got a special surprise for you guys. This is an adult red-tailed hawk, and this is one that is injured, that is non-releasable. He is on our education team, one of our education team birds. He's been with us for about 11, 12 years. He's been all over the state of Pennsylvania. He's taught tons of children. You can tell he's an adult red tail because he does have the full red tail. I brought a red tail hawk that we're going to go out back onto the thing there. We're going to release it before we're done. And I'll show you the difference. This one's not an adult. I actually have 11 red tails right now. This one right here is the 12th one that we've had, and we're going to take him out back. He's in the back there. We're going to get him out, and we're going to get him back in the wild and release him here. But he came in. He was hit by a car. Most of your adult birds of prey are hit by cars because they're flying down low to the ground. Their wings are out. It protects their body, but unfortunately their wing will get damaged. We do have a lot of good success with pinning them and getting them back in the wild, and we've done that. We've taken an average of about 700 animals a year. Right now I have 11 fawns, 3 bald eagles, 11 red-tailed hawks, 4 barred owls, and I haven't even begun to touch the surface. I know there's tons of songbirds, baby rabbits, squirrels, great horned owls, 4 or 5 great horned owls. My whole top section of cages in the rehab is nothing but adult great horned owls. So, I mean, got a lot of animals that we care for. This guy, like I said, he's been here. They're very common. You guys have all seen red tails around. And we use him for programs, and he's a pretty magnificent bird. I think he's, helped teach a lot of kids about, the right thing. Yeah.
Tell them about the West Nile virus, how bad it is.
Well, West Nile virus is really bad right now with birds. At first, it did a devastation on crows, but now it's into the other birds, and right now we have a bald eagle, juvenile, that is probably about this tall off the floor, big, huge female, and she, we think, has West Nile. She either has West Nile or she has head trauma real bad, but she does this. They have certain symptoms they have when you see them. When you're used to doing this, they call it typewriter. And she's doing it, but when we got her in, she was nosedived on her face with her tail in the air. And in the last 2 days, she's now perching. She's now eating. I've caught 4 or 5 fish for her out of the pond, and she just gulps them right down. So she is doing better, and she will go back in the wild. We have 2 others that are adult males that are going to be released. And if you get one of our brochures, it'll be on Facebook or email, and you can ask, and we'll probably make an announcement of where we're going to. One of them's from right down here, West Sunbury. What is that? The Glades. One came from the Glades, and 2 came from up north, one Fort City, one Pine Nest area. And they were all brought by the Game Commission. And well, actually, the one was found by the juvenile. No, the one male that was found at the Glades. He's banded. He was found 25 years exactly to the day, injured on the side of the road that he was banded. In the Glades, there was 4 16-year-old boys, and the one boy told my wife when she got there about 11 o'clock at night, I wasn't going to leave this bird at all until somebody came to help it. I would have stayed here all night with it. So it's pretty cool that even our younger people are actually starting to show concern like that. I'm going to put him away because we don't have much time. And I brought another bird. Now, as in red tails, we also have owls out there. And this owl came to us from Florida. But believe me, I didn't drive from Nashville to any rehab across the country, they're nonprofit organizations. Now this is an adult barred owl. We have very common to see barred owls in the area. And I say barred, a lot of people say, did he say barn? No, it's not a barn owl, it's a barred owl. And there is a big difference. Barn owls have a monkey-shaped face, and it's all white on the top, and they're a little bit taller than this. The barred owl got his name because he had bars down in front of his chest. He's not really a pet. He will bite you. It goes to show you that no animal makes a pet. I don't let him sit and watch TV and eat Cheetos with me or whatever. He doesn't live in my house. He lives in a cage outside. But we actually rescued him and a female. His one wing is severely damaged. All the bones were broken, hit by car. He was at a rehab center in Florida that lost all their funding. They were a nonprofit, just like us. They lost their money. Apparently there was one lady that was donating a large check every month. She passed away, the check stopped. They had an overabundance of injured, non-releasable birds that they needed to place. We had barred owls in, but they were all released back into the wild. That's our number one goal, is to get them back in the wild. So we adopted a pair of owls we had there. One's this male with the broken wing, and a female with a BB gun kid had shot his eye out. If an owl has an eye injury or a wing injury, they cannot be released back in the wild because they can't hunt successfully, because we know owls hunt at nighttime and they need full vision to be able to find their prey. You've got to remember, a lot of the prey that's out there at nighttime, if it comes out of its hole, it doesn't wander far because it knows that it could become prey to an owl or a fox or a coyote or whatever. So it goes back in the hole. If I was to release an owl with one eye, more than likely it'd starve to death because it couldn't successfully catch food. Barred owls are very common. They're not very picky. They will eat anything. They'll eat from small mice, garter snakes. They'll even actually dive on the ponds and eat fish like an osprey. And they're just very common in Pennsylvania. And they're the one that, anybody here turkey hunt?
No.
If you turkey hunt, you go out in the morning about 5:30, and you use a locator call. What kind of call do you use? A hoot owl call, right? All right, that's what his call is. It's a who cooks for you, who cooks for y'all, right? All right, now I want the turkey hunters to give me the plausible reason why a gobbler answers when you get an owl call. Why?
Shock.
Huh? Nope.
Shock.
Nothing to do with it, huh?
Shock. Just like slamming a car door.
Nope. Nope. These guys are famous for taking baby turkeys. Now listen, the biggest gobbler that's in that group is just like the male in a coyote pack. That biggest gobbler, when you hit that barred owl call, knows that there might be an owl around, and he's gobbling back to say, stay away from my group of babies. Because the hens and the gobbler stay together. You know what I mean? And that biggest gobbler that's in that group is just basically answering to tell that barred owl to stay away. Because that turkey will, if that barred owl's on the ground, that turkey gobbler will kill that barred owl that's trying to go after one of his babies. That's just normal, just Mother Nature, it's just the way it is. That gobbler just answering to say, I'm the biggest one here, stay away. Because they've hereditary gotten so used to these guys coming down, and they'll grab the little baby peeps away from the hens when they're real small. Because when they're hatched, they're automatically on the ground with mother traveling. But they're like I said, they're big mice eaters. We have so many different species of owls. We have about 16 different species of owls in Pennsylvania. From screech owls all the way up to great horned owls. We even have the great gray. The great gray is not considered a resident owl, but they do migrate through this area. On occasion, you might be able to see one, the snowy owl. Anybody here ever see a snowy owl in the world? Yeah, I've seen one in 14 years I've lived here, but they are around. And they say they're starting to go. The reason why the snowy owls come south is because the lemmings migrate up in Canada areas, and so they have no food sources, so they'll come down here for rabbits in the winter. All right, I know we're getting close to time, and that's normal. He can't fly, but he doesn't have really good balance. He hasn't been out on the program in a couple of weeks, so lazy buddy. He's been sitting in the cages enjoying the summer. So I'm going to put him back, and we're going to go get a red tail. And before we quit, we're going to go out there and we're going to go to you guys are more than welcome to come out and watch me. We'll grab this guy and I'll give a little bit about him. He had head trauma when he came in, and he was only there for probably a couple months. We're allowed to keep him up to 90 days, I think it is. And want to get him out as quick as we can to get him back in the wild. He came from this area, not right here, but right close to here. So this is a perfect place to release him.